got a theme. Anybody guess what the topic is for today?
Respect.
I got it, and just a little bit.
And I think she's shortchanging herself by asking for just a little bit.
Yeah, you kind of wonder if there's a backstory there.
You know, come on.
Well, how much money are we talking?
Just a little bit.
I'm talking about the respect. She should be asking for a lot of respect.
I'm guessing everybody here will be able to sing and recite that song for another couple hours.
And the meaning.
Yeah.
Can we see it
But
again?
moving on. There are approximately 190 countries and more than 7 billion people on our planet, Earth. So it's not hard to assume that many different cultures would exist. Here in the US and Canada, our cultural landscape has been shaped by Native Americans, Europeans, Africans, Latin Americans, Polynesians, Asians, Middle Eastern, and anything else you can think of. That's the reason the term melding pot fits our country so well. So many other countries and cultures and people have contributed their distinct flavor to who we are. But for some reason, our country seems to have forgotten that we have this melting pot background. We forgot that each of these cultures that contributed to who and what we are deserve
Respect.
Oh, you guys are good.
Just a little bit.
I think I'll just sit down now. But seriously, things have gotten so bad that I actually feel the need to address what respect means. The topic today is respect as a virtue. The outline was submitted by Reverend Val Benedict, Lake Havasu CSL and CSL Edmonton Metro. If we didn't mention it before, the monthly theme, how coincidental, respect other nations and people, gratitude. According to Wikipedia, respect is a positive feeling or action shown towards something or someone considered important or held in high esteem or regard. It conveys a sense of admiration for good or valuable qualities. And it's also the process of honoring someone by exhibiting care, concern, consideration for their needs, their feelings. If people respect you, it's easy to respect them back. We do it all the time. If people disrespect you, respect them back. I left out the dis that time. If they disrespect you, respect them back. They represent their ideology. You represent yours. When a person shows respect for someone, then it means that person has some value to them. Each person has value and a purpose in the universe and should be respected as such. If someone disrespects you, you have the option of continuing to respect yourself. Don't lose your self-respect just because someone else lost theirs. Virtue is a behavior showing high moral standards. In our teaching, we honor and respect each other's differences in religions, gender, ethnic, and there are so many other differences. But there's only one path to the one. The path you're on. Oh, that'd be about 7+ billion paths. So it's unique. We all have our own path. If we take the responsibility to hold every one of the Creator's creations in this esteem, we can then show up in our own fullness and literally have a feeling of gratitude for each person we encounter in our lives. Ernest Holmes, our founder and author of Science of Mind, if this brotherhood of man were recognized and practiced by the world at large, all war, poverty, and need would vanish from the face of the earth. They are creations of the finite mind and were never intended to be, they being war, poverty, and need, and all the other apparent problems. God views all as a perfect whole. Our divisions are only apparent. They can never be real. That's from Dr. Holmes. So I have a very important question for each of you. I have a question about respect for you. That's a trick sentence, Peter. I mean that both literally and figuratively. I have an important question about respect for you. Do you respect the person you see in the mirror every day? Do you? You don't have to answer. You know I'm always going to throw in an Einstein quote. Dr. Albert Einstein stated it this way: a human being is part of a whole, called by us the universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself or herself or their self, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest. It's a kind of optical delusion of his own consciousness. This delusion becomes kind of a prison for us. It restricts us to our personal desires and to affection for the few persons next to us, nearest to us, dearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from that prison by widening our circles of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. End quote. That was a letter that Dr. Einstein wrote in 1950. It was republished in Time a couple times. Once we begin to learn to respect ourselves, then we can begin to learn to respect others. Sometimes it seems the other way around. We know with certainty each one of us is harder on ourselves than we are on anyone else. Why? Where does that come from? Many of us, if not most, I won't ask for self-identification, suffer from lack of self-respect. How can we change that? Buddha said, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. Pretty good. Our local Virginia City editor, Mark Twain, a man cannot be comfortable without his own approval. That makes sense. I believe this is the first time that I've ever quoted this great philosopher. Love yourself first and everything else falls into line. You really have to love yourself to get anything done in this world. Lucille Ball. I'm going to look for more quotes from her. You go, girl. Once we begin to respect ourselves, then we can really get down to business, offering respect to each other. But how can we learn to respect those of other cultures that we encounter in our world? Well, by learning about their culture. We can increase our horizons, our exposure, have better interpersonal dialogue, and communicate more on a personal level. If we're never exposed to other cultures, we can't begin to develop cross-cultural relationships. By that, I mean when we can truly become friends with persons of another culture. Unless you can appreciate their culture, you're going to have a little bit of a barrier between you. It's one of those cases where we don't know what we don't know. If we look at other cultures and people from those cultures, and all we see are the differences, we're missing the point. When we look at people from other cultures and begin to know all the similarities, then we're on the path of expanding our own consciousness. There are no cultures on earth that have more differences with us than similarities. Think about that. I remember reading a quote about a week ago, and I don't remember who the enlightened person was, but a student said, "Master, how should we treat others?" And the master smiled, and he said, "There are no others." It was probably a bodhisattva, but I don't know. I think this was Dr. Holmes. Yeah. Dr. Holmes says, "We are so used to thinking of ourselves as separate from one another that we suspect the very feeling and emotion that causes us to embrace everything in love. The ones who love the most will live the most. We meet each other only in fragments, only partially, only in a miserly way when we refuse to open the whole avenue of our consciousness to the realization that there is but one living spirit. If our human relations are to mean the most to us, we must sense that hidden within us, around us, and through each of us is this divine presence, manifesting itself in infinite variations. The same impulse, the same love and life, but never quite alike in any two persons." That's from Science of Mind. No, it's 365 Science of Mind, separate book. Now earlier I described America as a melting pot. But what do you get in a melting pot? Everything just combines into one thing. It becomes, in our case, an American, which is a good thing. We all become Americans in our melting pot. Within, some time frame, we know there are so many cultural neighborhoods left in their own cities, where they retain their language, they retain their cultures. But eventually, second generation, third generation, they're all Americans, even when they first come in. But here's a quote and a description I like much better. We have become not a melting pot, but a beautiful mosaic. Different people, different beliefs, different yearnings, different hopes, different dreams. That was from President Jimmy Carter. Someone else had the same idea. Here's a quote from the Reverend Jesse Jackson. America is not like a blanket, one piece of unbroken cloth. America is more like a quilt, many patches, many pieces, many colors, many sizes, all woven together by a common thread. We're the only country in the world that has taken people from so many different backgrounds, which is a great achievement by itself. But an even greater achievement is that we've turned all of that variety and diversity into unity. And in Living the Science of Mind, Dr. Holmes says this, and realizing that the world is made up of people like myself, I bless the world and affirm that it shall come under divine governance of good, and under divine providence of love, and under the divine leadership of the supreme intelligence. So if we are to receive this richer culture, rich in values, we must recognize the whole gamut of human potentialities. And so we consciously weave this less arbitrary social fabric, one in which each diverse human gift will find a proper, fitting place. Here's a quote from Michel de Montaigne. There never were in the world two opinions alike, no more than 2 hairs or 2 grains. The most universal quality is diversity. So now we've talked about this a little while. Let me ask you a question. How many of you have ever owned a book? Really? Pretty much everyone has owned a book? Did you just stop at 1 or did you have 2? Was it better? Just 1? Or to have 2 or 3 or 10 or 100 or thousands? Yes, I'm a book hoarder. I admit it.
Dory's a book eater.
Yeah. If you had a book you liked, why would you need another book? Really? If you had an author you liked, maybe you'd buy all of his or her books and nobody else. Right? No? I didn't think so. I was just checking. Spirit, creator, manifests differently, uniquely, in over 7 billion people. 7 billion. And each one of us is a distinct, unique flavor. So let's enjoy all the flavors. More than Baskin's 31 flavors. 7 billion flavors. Each of us has different fingertips, fingerprints, irises, personalities, thoughts, beliefs, and so on. Do you believe that's an accident, or was Spirit trying to make a point? You'll be happy to know I'm now reading the summary. The first summary. In today's world, we are all able to respect and know about other cultures. With social media, one Facebook post can go around the world in 20 minutes. We have no excuse to not be aware of other cultures. You can look it up online. You can find out from Wikipedia or real sources what's going on in other countries, how they act, how they live, not what they think, but beliefs, customs. It's all part of the culture. We must learn to respect their values and beliefs. Life would be so much easier for all of us, and we can learn so many good things from each other. I know I've learned a lot in this process with CSL, and I continue to learn each and every day, sometimes whether I want to or not. Sometimes we create the hard lesson. The universe applies Mr. 2x4. Got your attention now? Yes, you do. Thank you. We have so much diversity. We must learn to appreciate it. We see it in nature. How many species of songbirds are there? Lots. How many species of conifer trees, deciduous trees? How many types of lizards? I know where most of the ground squirrels live, or used to live.
On our ranch.
Nature is diversity. Spirit is giving us an example, and it's up to us to learn from it, to appreciate it, and to respect it. Namaste.